There was no question of Nehru attempting to create a dynasty of his own, as it would be inconsistent with his character and career. But within 2 years after the demise of Nehru, his daughter was brought to the center stage of Indian politics. In this video, we are going to discuss how Indira Gandhi became Prime Minister of India and highlights of her first year as Prime Minister. Death of Shastri left the country leaderless again. There was still no candidate strong enough to be the Prime Minister acceptable to all. This commenced the second season of Game of Thrones. After the death of Shastri, Gulzarilal Nanda once again sworn in as the acting Prime Minister. K. Kamaraj, who was Congress President, and his syndicate once again began the search of the next Prime Minister. Once again, Morarji Desai was the strong contestant for the Prime Minister post. Once more, Kamaraj rejected him for the more acceptable candidate. In his mind, Kamaraj had Mrs. Gandhi. She was young, having just turned into 48. Moreover, she was the daughter of the best-loved leader of Indians. She had less administrative experience, but this time syndicate would ensure that hers would be a properly collective leadership. The chief ministers, consulted by Kamaraj, quickly endorsed Mrs. Gandhi's name. So far so good. Except Morarji Desai decided he would contest for the leadership. So New Delhi now became the cockpit of concerted canvassing, large-scale lobbying and hectic horse trading. Mrs. Gandhi and Morarji Desai met with major leaders while their seconds stalked the rank and file. Though Kamaraj tried to persuade Desai to withdraw his name and avoid the election within the Congress, Desai made sure that this time Prime Minister would be selected by the votes. With Kamaraj and the syndicate so solidly backing Mrs. Gandhi and others in the Congress having their own reservations regarding Desai, Nehru's daughter commanded majority support in the Congress Parliamentary Party. Kamaraj had lined up the state satraps behind Indira Gandhi. When that body voted to choose a Prime Minister on 19th January 1966, she won by 355 votes to 169. On 24th January 1966, Indira Gandhi sworn in as Prime Minister of India. She was the second woman to lead a free nation after Sirima Bandaranaike of Ceylon being the first one. It is said that Indira Gandhi was very disappointed when she was given a lower profile of communications and broadcasting. She even wrote to her friend about quitting the politics and settling abroad. It is amazing to know this turn of time. In less than 2 years, her fortunes changed so much that she was now set on to become the most powerful figure in India. Indira Gandhi had only 1 year before the next general election. Let us now look at the highlights of this year of 1966. In March 1966, a major revolt broke out in the Mizo Hills, a tribal district bordering East Pakistan. It was led by Mizo National Front, or MNF, which first asked for a separate state within Indian Union and then for a separate country itself. The leader of the MNF was a one-time accountant named Lal Denga. Lal Denga made contact with the military government of East Pakistan, who promised him guns and money and a base from which to mount attacks. The Indian response was to call in the army and also the air force. Far from surrendering, the rebels fought on, the conflict running for the rest of the year and into the next. Meanwhile, in Nagaland, the peace mission had collapsed. In the last week of February 1966, Jayaprakash Narayan resigned from the mission, saying that he had lost the confidence of the Nagas. The breakdown of the peace talks was signaled by a wave of attacks on civilian targets. On 20th April, a bomb went off in a train in Upper Assam, killing 55 passengers. 3 days later, a similar explosion claimed a further 40 lives. The Naga radicals were now making contact with China, whose help they sought in renewing their struggle. From these rebellions, the new Prime Minister turned with relief to the creation of a separate state for the Sikhs. In the war against Pakistan, Sikh commanders as well as Jawans had distinguished themselves in large numbers. So had the ordinary Punjabi. Farmers opened stalls on the roadside to feed troops with the choicest delicacies. Their bravery in the war impelled the government of India to concede a long-standing demand of the Sikhs. In March 1966, a committee of MPs recommended a threefold division of the existing state, with the hill districts going to Himachal Pradesh and the eastern Hindu majority areas coming to constitute a new state of Haryana. What these deletions left behind was a Punjab that was both Punjabi speaking as well as dominated by Sikhs. India was facing drought since 1964. In both 1965 and 1966, India imported 15 million tons of American wheat under a public loan scheme called PL 480. This was going to feed 40 million mouths. A memorandum prepared in the US Department of Agriculture stated baldly that India was destitute. When the rains failed again in 1966, the prospects for India was one more drought, one more year of acute dependence on PL 480 imports, and one more year of exposure to the world as paupers. At the same time, sections of the Washington establishment thought the Indians hypocritical, asking for aid with one hand while attacking American foreign policy with the other. New Delhi's criticism of the Vietnam War rankled America deeply. The bitterness between India-US relation increased during this time. Indira Gandhi started distancing herself from US. She developed close links with Nasser of Egypt and Tito of Yugoslavia and began to stress the need for non-aligned countries to cooperate politically and economically in order to counter the danger of neo-colonialism emanating from the US and West European countries. The purchase of arms and grain from abroad, along with the import of machinery and materials for industrial development, caused a dangerous dip in India's foreign exchange reserves, which were down to $625 million in March 1966. To counter this, the government decided to devalue the rupee in June. Earlier pegged at rupees 4.76 to the US dollar, the exchange rate now became rupees 7.5. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund had both recommended devaluation, though its magnitude exceeded even their expectations. However, in India, the action was greeted by a storm of protest from the left. The Communist MP Hiren Mukherjee claimed that devaluation had been forced on India by the cloak and dagger aid givers of America. A communist trade union called it a shameful act of national betrayal. Large sections of Mrs. Gandhi's own party were opposed to devaluation. Kamraj, for one, saw it as undermining the policy of national self-reliance. But the action was supported by the free market proponents, Swatantra Party. But devaluation was not accompanied by the liberalization of trade regime. Controls on the inflow of capital remained in place, and there was no push to increase exports. During this period, the Hindu Orthodox started a movement for an end to the killing of sacred cow. On 6 November, a huge procession was taken through the streets of capital. Among 1 lakh marchers were many sadhus brandishing tridents and spears. The anti-Hindu Code Bill fame Swami Karpatri was also the core part of this movement. It was also supported by Jansangh. The movement turned into a violent one. All India Radio was gutted and house of K. Kamaraj set on fire. It is estimated that 250 cars, 100 scooters and 10 buses were destroyed. By the evening, the army was patrolling the streets for the first time since the dark days of 1947. Atal Bihari Vajpayee issued a statement deploring the fact that the undesirable elements who resorted to the violent activities in the demonstration against cow slaughter had done a great harm to the pious cause. The year 1966 also witnessed the beginning of the downslide of Parliament as an institution. There were constant disturbances and indiscipline in Parliament, with some members of the opposition showing complete disregard for parliamentary decorum and niceties. Many a time the young Prime Minister was not extended the courtesy in keeping with her office. She was often subjected to heckling and harassment, vicious and vulgar personal attacks, male chauvinist and sexist references, and unfounded allegations. Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia missed no opportunity of ridiculing her and described her as Gungi Gudiya, meaning dumb doll. Overall, the beginning of Indira Gandhi's career as Prime Minister was full of hiccups. She had to struggle to establish the authority as Prime Minister. With this background, she was going to face the fourth and historically very important general election in 1967. In our next video, we will discuss the fourth general election. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and comment because discussion is solution. For more discussions, please subscribe our channel.